I'd like to call to order the May 7, 2013 meeting of the Buncombe County Commission. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, if you join me in prayer. God, thank you for the spring. This warm weather encourages plants, flowers, trees, and leaves to push out, to show their beauty. Spring is a rebirth of nature, awakening of all the growth and color and size of all of the beauties to be in the summer and fall. Spring helps our insects, birds, bees, and all the creatures that you have created thrive. Help us to enjoy the miracle of seasons. We live in a place that has 4 seasons, and where each one is so special. Also warm our hearts to push ourselves to help other people. Awaken us to appreciate all people, even if they're different than we are. And help all of our community to thrive, not just one group, because we all need each other, and each resident is special and deserves our attention, focus, and help us to enjoy the spring and the opportunity we have for new awakening, new ideas, and even better communities. Thank you for this season, and make each one that we have better than the last one. Amen.
Amen.
In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the Commission, it's the duty of every board member to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict. Does any board member know of any matter coming before us today that might be a potential conflict? All right, thank you. We will, before we get going, I would like to recognize Commissioner King for a special thank you that I think all the board feels pretty strongly about.
I just would like to say to Dr. Green and our staff, all, and particularly Manny Stone, who worked on the Western Highlands transition, that has gone well. I'd like the public to know how quickly our staff jumped on this and has put in motion and put in place pretty much a seamless transition to a new LME that will handle mental health. And I just want to say thank you, as the board would love to say thank you for all that you've done. Sorry that Ms. Stone's not here tonight.
I will make sure we pass that thanks along. She has a sick child, but she worked very, very hard on that, and I appreciate it.
Okay, I'd also like to just take about a few, maybe a minute, to recognize and honor Carrie Owen. Carrie Owen was a Buncombe County Commissioner from 1972 to 1980. She was the first female Buncombe County Commissioner in our history, and she was a commissioner when the board composition changed from 3 to 5. She is someone that was extremely active in our community. In addition to her public service with the Community Foundation, president of the Concert Association, active United Way, founding member of Pack Square Park, active Board of Governors of UNC North Carolina, co-chairman for the North Carolina Teaching Training Task Force, Board of Trustees UNC Asheville, trustee Arts and Sciences Foundation of UNC Chapel Hill, Moorhead Scholarship Selection Committee, Order of Longleaf Pine. Carrie Owen was truly an iconic, wonderful woman that will be greatly missed in our community, and I'd ask that we just take a moment of silence to think about and honor Carrie Owen. Thank you. Finally, we have Commissioner Belcher's birthday is today. Yay. Happy birthday to Commissioner Belcher. We're glad to have him on the board, and we appreciate all of the time and energy and effort you have given us already in your time here.
Thank you,
We're
Dave.
gonna sing?
Oh, my.
Maybe later.
Maybe later.
All right, now we'll have public comment. The time limit for any comment is 3 minutes. If your time expires, you can leave any question along with your name, address, phone number, and email with the county manager. Commissioners are not expected to comment on any matters during public comment. These comments should be limited to subjects that are within the jurisdiction of the Board of Commissioners or pertain to matters upon which we may act. Any individual speaking during public comment shall address the entire board. Any polling of board members is inappropriate. Persons addressing the Board of Commission are expected to observe the decorum of the chamber and to be respectful of everyone in the room. Any individual who interrupts, disturbs, disrupts the session will be asked to leave, and the Commission deserves the right to deny public address on any subject that's previously been presented to the Commission. Are there any public comments tonight? Mr. Yelton?
Since I can't address you individually, does that mean I can't tell the lady sitting beside you that her haircut looks good? Because I think it looks great on her, and I can't say anything for Joe and David, John Creighton, because they ain't got no hair to work with. But a little humor, you got to have a little humor, especially when I look at what I see coming down the road. I know it's been rumored that we may have a 5 cent per 100 evaluation tax increase. And I'd like to point out to all you commissioners that if you evaluate that, that's going to be almost a 10% increase in the rate for the county residents. For the city residents that live in the city but not in the school city district, it'll be about a 4.9% increase in their taxes. But for those that live in the Asheville City School District and the Asheville District, it's going to be about a 4.3 increase in their taxes because they already pay 1.02. So it's going to hit the county residents a little bit harder. And the reason a lot of people moved to the county was because they couldn't afford to live in the city. And so if we take that 5 cents, and then I understand that we're looking at merging the Parks and Rec because it would be more efficient, but yet we're going to let them have a taxing authority for up to a 7 cent per 100 evaluation tax. That's been rumored a little bit. That's a 12% increase in the county resident taxes, which if you take 12 points on 52.5, that's darn near 25% increase in county taxes. So I want to tell this board, you know, you're going to run out of money when property taxes is the only thing that you can do. And Mission Hospital is buying up every doctor's office in Asheville and every clinic in Asheville. They just bought another one this past week. So the more they buy, the less tax revenue you have. And we know what's happened to the evaluation of the big mega million-dollar homes in Biltmore Forest, how much they dropped. So you're hurting for money. Well, guess what? When I'm hurting for money, and when the citizens of Buncombe County hurt for money, you know what they do? They cut their expenses. They don't trade cars as frequently. They don't go out to the movie anymore. They don't go out to eat. So we need to look at where we can cut a minimum of $10 million to avoid that tax increase on the county residents. Because I can tell you right now, they can't afford it. They can't afford the 10% increase or as much as a 20% increase. And I got 13 seconds left.
Thank you, Mr. Yelton. Any other public comment tonight? Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. If it wasn't for Don and I don't guess you'd have any lives around here. Got to have somebody to laugh at. I just handed out you something here. It's a non-profit list. I want you to see that. Let me turn it this way. It don't matter which way you turn it, it's full. And on the back, this counts to $8,595,321. Okay, Don talked about hard times. We are in a hard time. The big red X on there, it means get rid of it. Don't even consider it. Well, yeah, you do want to consider it. Consider it means look at it and then put it away. Department of Social Service, I think, needs to be given the opportunity to decide what nonprofits needs and where it needs to happen at for human service needs. Last year was $13.5 million. Don't know what it's going to be this year, but I don't think the commissioners need to be deciding this. I think it needs to be professionals in the business of knowing what it's about. The other thing is on capital. This Board of Commissioners should not be in the loaning business. Our tax money should not be lent out to people to make money off of or for nonprofits. Hard times is hard times. We seem to be getting into business that we shouldn't be in as a commission. If you want to save some more money, I'm going to show you where else to save it. Buncombe County Schools has got $6 to $9 million in a fund balance, and they don't even supposed to carry a fund balance according to law. Yins are. I'm not a lawyer, but have your lawyer look into it. Then he'll know that I'm telling the truth. The local government commission does not recognize it as a taxing authority, so they can't. Now, there's $6 to $9 million. Well, you got $8.5 million here. I'll bring you some more cuts too. Now, I'm not joking. I'm saying cut it. If we have to live in a stress that we live in as an individual, we need to let the community know that this is real, that we ain't got money to float our boat on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Thank you.
Any other public comment tonight? All right. If none, then we will ask for a motion to follow the agenda as we have amended it, which adds the Riverfront redevelopment after the State of the Airport address. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Motion by Vice Chair Jones, second by Commissioner King. Is there any discussion of following the agenda as we've modified it? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We will follow the agenda as revised by a 7-0 vote. Public hearing, Jay Swain, NC Department of Transportation, Secondary Road Program. Mr. Swain, always good to see you. Please come up and tell us how we're doing with our secondary roads. Mr. Brown.
Mr. Chairman, I am not Jay Swain. My name is David Brown.
Brown, thank you.
I am the DOT board member for the 13th Division. We do have Mr. Swain here, who is the division engineer, Mr. Ed Green, who is the maintenance engineer, and our district engineer, Mr. Chad Bandy. So they're the experts. If you have the tough questions, we'll refer to them. But our purpose this evening is to review the annual secondary roads program for Buncombe County. In the past 5 years, over $7.6 million of your tax money has gone towards paving and improving the secondary road system. The anticipated allocation for fiscal year 2013-14 is a little over $1,300,000. Mr. Chairman, you were correct in saying this has been a very successful program. We have completed paving all the rural road programs where we could get the right-of-way. I think there's approximately 40 roads in Buncombe County that we have not gotten the right-of-way on.
Wonderful.
We do have one priority of a road that is an extension. SR 1291 Grooms Road is being extended from the end of the pavement to the maintenance, end of the maintenance to the end of the road there, and that's at a cost of $50,000. Under the subdivision paving, number one priority is Scenic View, SR 2545. That's a length of 1/10 of a mile at a cost of $50,000. The next priority in the subdivision paving is Dogwood Drive in Arden, It's a little less than 0.2 of a mile at a cost of $85,000. We had 6 roads last year that brought onto the system that we'll be paving this spring. They are Loving, Cheek, Benfield, Wilhide, Spring Mountain, and Old Troll Road, totaling 2.2 miles at a cost of $57,000. The bigger projects, we will be widening the travel way of 3 existing paved roads, and they are Old NC 20, New Stock Road, Dogwood Road, and Candler. These total 6.3 miles at a cost of $984,000. So this is the program for this next fiscal year, and if you have any questions at this time, we'd be glad to address them.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Are there any questions?
Okay, if you are in agreement with the plan, we would appreciate a vote of approval and have the resolution signed and sent to DOT.
When you're talking about widening, like Dogwood Road in Candler, 2 miles, is that past out? Is that out towards Hooker's Gap? Is that after you turn down and go up Hooker's Gap?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. All right, no questions. We'll go ahead and take public comment. We'll start our public hearing at 4:49. Does any member of the public wish to be heard on the secondary roads comments? Mr. Yelton. Same rules, 3 minutes.
Since this is a public hearing, I'd like to publicly thank Jay for the job that he's done in Buncombe County, because several times I've called him about Jupiter Road. It's very narrow. We've had over 350, 400 houses built there in the last 5 years. It's falling apart. Potholes had developed in the side that was dangerous, and I brought that to his attention, and he fixed the potholes. He also came through and did the best that he could on the curb and put the stone on the curb, because we had real deep eat out when those big trucks come through there. But I would like to publicly also say that Jupiter Road needs to be widened and resurfaced. Like I said, there's been about 450 houses built there since that road was last addressed. And I know that they've not got a big pot of money, and I know everybody wants something, but that's a safety issue. That's not a convenience issue, that's a safety issue. Also, when we talked about it, and I talked to Jay, he said there was a lot of less accidents on that road. Well, there was 2 accidents on that road that would not be recorded and not reported, both of which I was involved with. How many of you seen the mirrors on these new trucks? You know what it costs to replace one? $850, because you know why? I've replaced 2. And you know what the Highway Patrol did when they came out? We can't do anything about that, because the man that was riding with me is not akin to me, but he couldn't testify in court that that woman was on my side of the road, which she was, looking around at her kid in the back seat. That's the most stupid law deal that the Highway Patrol's ever passed. Put your kid in the back seat. Now, you ladies on that board up there, you ain't going to drive down the road not looking at your woman, your kid in the back seat, are you? If it starts crying. So that's what she was doing, and nothing could be done legally about it. So it is a matter of safety. I want to publicly thank Jay, but I also publicly say, let's see if we can find money to get Jupiter Road widened and repaved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Yelton. Any other public comment on the secondary roads? Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. You know, we can look at all these roads, and we have in North Carolina, and we get a lot of tax money. Seems like it's about 60-some cents a gallon on gas, on taxes or something like that, or some number anyway.
34.
How much?
I think it's 34. They can correct me if it's wrong.
Okay. I know there's a big deal. But we have one of the largest states with roads in the United States as far as roads, paved roads. The concern that I have is not that we've got a nice paved road. I think we've got a lot of good roads, but we got a lot of bad ones. And used to, you couldn't go out on the road without seeing a crew out on the road working on them. And all this torrential rain that we've had and this bad, snowy, hard weather we've had, it's took a toll on these roads. So we can brag about the roads being paved, but my concern is, what about the maintenance to these roads? Because let me tell you, I drive a junker and don't care to tell you, and I'll bounce around and go on. But let me tell you, there's some bad roads out here. And you talk about safety. When you see ambulances jumping the curb and doing all kinds of things in potholes, I don't think that's good when we talk about safety, and our road maintenance is in such a crappy job. Now, they can beautify the interstates, and they can do all that and make it look beautiful. You know, you can put flowers on a grave and it looks good. But we need to not look at the beauty of the Interstate 26 and 40. We need to be concerned about where all of these tail lights and these headlights are going when they leave Buncombe County on their jobs and going back home, and the safety of these people on these roads. So don't tell me we ain't got some serious maintenance problems, and we need to be addressing those and let the state weigh in on that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Any other public comment on the secondary road program? If not, I'll declare the public hearing closed at 4:55. Would someone from DOT get up and talk about the priorities, how you do rank the roads, how you did that, and how you got the point that there's almost very few roads on there, just so the public will understand what criteria you do take into account on these roads. Thank you.
Yes, on our secondary road system, our unpaved roads, we do have a priority system that we came up with many years ago in order to get these roads that we've got on here paved. That priority system takes into account the number of homes the road serves, the amount of traffic on the road, whether it's a school bus route, whether it has a business on the road. I think that's the main ones we have, and then all those are tallied up, and then we put them all in a database, and it sorts them out and ranks them in priority. And according to the law, we are required to pave in priority order, and we have done that now for the last 20 plus years in paving these roads. We have gone through the entire list in Buncombe County and have paved everything that we could get right of way for. The only ones left now are the ones that the people decided they didn't, for some reason or other, didn't want to give us the right of way. Does that answer
Yeah,
your
that's
question?
good. Any other questions about the priorities or anything? Okay, thank you. All right, we've heard from the public. We've heard the report. Is there a motion to approve the report?
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Belcher, second by Commissioner King. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the report say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The report is approved 7-0. No county manager report. Our new business, we have a resolution amending the guidelines for funding of nonprofit agencies, and we will start with our county manager, Dr. Green.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, in August of 2002, the Board of Commissioners adopted a nonprofit funding resolution. That resolution spoke to board appointment limitations based on whether or not we funded it and we were required by law to be on those boards, and to capital funding parameters. It also emphasized several requirements about opening the books of the organization, and the county then would manage those funds through a performance contract. At our last meeting, Commissioner Belcher mentioned that he would like to strengthen some of those requirements, and he indicated he would be happy to share with us the specifics on what we would strengthen and have included in the document that's before you tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Green. The most important thing that's on here is really just one thing, and that's making our nonprofits better by requiring, let me just read it. Nonprofit agencies will be funded only through a performance contract that's monitored and evaluated by the contracting department throughout the year and only renewed if the performance criteria have been achieved. Period. Audited finance statements and IRS 990s must be submitted to the Buncombe County Finance Department annually. In general, administrative costs of 12% will be used as a guideline. However, each application will be considered based on program need and community impact. All the other things in the resolution are already there, as Dr. Green has said, and that there's some discussion out there that we did not have nonprofits open their books for the county to look at that. Well, this is to clarify that. That policy is in place. It has been in place to clarify that. But there's, as I said, this is to make nonprofits better, allowing them to understand that, to take a look at these administrative expenses, and that we'll look at them too. But it is not to restrict anyone from coming and asking for help or money. That's not the intent of it at all. It's not somebody against nonprofits, or we're for the nonprofits. We use a lot of nonprofits to do some good work for the county. The second thing is that the savings, it's to save dollars through strengthening efficiency and accountability. And again, it's not against the nonprofits. It's our job to provide oversight for the taxpayers, and it's pretty simple, actually. Just adding that one thing to our existing policy.
And it provides good guidelines for the staff to follow as we manage these contracts.
Right.
I've got a couple questions for Mr. Frew, maybe about the legalities, if I could. Basically, Mr. Frew, as Commissioner Belcher said, the books have been required already. That's not a new thing. We've already, and I think the staff, is it not true the staff was entitled and obligated to do further investigation if they felt more needed to be done as far as the paperwork?
Yes, we review those financial statements when they come in, and if we see a problem, we will talk to the organization. Our internal auditor reviews those for us.
Okay, is there any, my concern was, and I think I've had it resolved through Commissioner Belcher's comments and discussing it with him, there's nothing in this that would prevent a nonprofit, either existing one or something that is coming before us, to present their case. This is kind of, but when they do, then the triggers the paperwork and the requirements and the aspirational that they keep the administrative cost to 12%. Is that?
Yeah.
Maybe I should. I'm kind
I think that's right. I agree. It puts some more burden on the nonprofit agency to report those their 990s in the audited finance statement, and but it allows some consideration of the program need and community impact to give this board the leeway it would need or might need in the future.
And I know beyond any doubt from talking to Commissioner Belcher, this is not an attempt to hurt nonprofits. In fact, as he said, it's an attempt to help. And we do have another responsibility on the other side, is to take care of the public's money as good stewards. Right. So I think you're trying to balance that, and it sounds like it's a good balance to me. Any other questions for the manager or the attorney? Yes, sir, Mr. Newman.
Thank you, David. The one maybe clarification. We talked about this a little bit at the retreat, and I suggested a little bit of language, but and I'm sorry, I just was reading it again. I just thought of this on the spot, but the one item I think we just may want to look at the language on a little bit more carefully. Item E states that county commissioners will not serve as a volunteer on any board or organization seeking funding from county government. I would suggest that we strike the word volunteer on there, because again, this could be interpreted. I think what we're trying to say is you can't serve on the board, right. But you could still read this as saying you can't volunteer on any board or organization. If we just take the word volunteer out, I think we make it more clear that what we're talking about is if you serve on a board, then you can't then turn around and advocate for county funding for that group. But I don't think we want to create the impression that if you, for example, volunteer a couple of hours on a weekend for Habitat for Humanity, that all of a sudden you can't participate in the discussion. So if we could just take the word volunteer out of that, I think our intent was to make it clear you couldn't be on the board.
That was the
You
original.
strike as a volunteer, so it will not serve on any board.
Yeah, I guess I'm suggesting if we just said the county commissioners will not serve on any board of an organization seeking funding from county government. That'd be my suggestion, if that's acceptable.
Okay, is that, I'll take it, Commissioner Belcher had a motion. Is that a friendly amendment? Do you
I'd
accept
suggest that as a friendly amendment.
Yes.
Okay, that's
I'll
acceptable.
second that.
Okay, second. Okay.
Okay,
good.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Good
And I did have one other question, or maybe just a clarification to make sure I am interpreting the language correctly. Item C, I'm sorry, item D states that for projects that we provide capital funding to, that the funding will be provided over a period of not less than 5 years. And so does that mean that, let's just say for an organization that has a capital project and we decide to contribute $100,000, say hypothetically, that if we approve $100,000, that would be dispersed as $20,000 a year for 5 years in a row?
That's the way it's, we've interpreted it, and I think that's the way it was intended in 2002. If they requested, say, $500,000, we'd pay it out at $100,000 a year for 5 years.
Okay, and so thank you for that clarification. That's what I thought it said. I just wanted to make sure. And so as we go back to, if we adopt this today, then as we think about some of the capital projects that are, where proposals have come forward for our consideration, and we think about that dollar, in terms of the budget implications for the coming fiscal year, it would only be 1/5 of that. Is that correct if we stick with this procedure?
If it is a gift of funds for a capital project, yes. If it's for a service that we're actually buying, or it moves into a different fund. So this is just a flat-out gift of money would be spread over 5 years.
Okay, I guess that's helpful, because I guess I had not, when I think about some of the capital funding requests for this year, and we talk about a dollar amount, I think many of us have been kind of assuming, well, this means this is what we would do this year, and maybe next year we may or may not do something else. But anyway, I'm fine with this. I guess I just want to make sure we're all thinking about that formula as we think about this year's budget process. So thank you for clarifying that.
All right, any other questions?
I think I'll just make the comment that, that these are guidelines. The ultimate decision lies with the board.
Can I just go back to what Brownie was asking about the capital funding? So if we were to fund a project and the stipulated amount of money, automatically that money would be divided 5 years?
Actually, we make the decision each year in the budget. If you wanted to make a gift of funding, we'd make that decision then. If it were for a capital project, and let's just use Pack Square Park when it was built, the money was needed up front. It was a conscious choice to provide all of it at one time.
So we have the
Sometimes
leeway to do that.
You do have some leeway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions?
Was there a motion to?
Yes, I took Commissioner Belcher's presentation as a motion, and Commissioner Frost has seconded that motion with the friendly amendment offered by you.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the amended policy as stated, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The resolution amendment is adopted. Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Airport Director Lew Bleiweis on the state of the airport. It's always good to have Mr. Bleiweis here and give us an update on what's going on at our favorite airport.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I wish this 3 minutes applied to me, but I guess it doesn't. I have placed some handouts at your location, or I've gotten handouts placed at your location. I'll be going over some of the things in there. It'll be a little easier for you to read than what you may see on the screen. At this point, I'm going to start with my presentation and move forward. Maybe not.
Here's some quick facts that we'll be talking about today. Brief overview of the Asheville Airport, the economic importance of the airport to our region, not only on a national perspective but on a local level, and what 2012 brought as far as a review for the airport and what we're looking for in the future. Today, here's some quick facts. We have an 8,000-foot runway. We're served by 4 airlines, that being Allegiant, Delta, United, and U.S. Airways. We have approximately 24 flights a day, and we have 8 nonstop destinations, with the 9th starting on June 6th to St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Florida on Allegiant Air. Long-term history shows growth at the airport. Starting back from 1961, you can see where our passenger base was to where it is today. It's a cyclical, up and down, but overall, over that 50-year history, it's been increasing over the years. The highest passenger count we've had was in 2010, pretty much flat for 2011, and we did see about a 12% decrease in 2012, not because of the community, but strictly because of what the airlines have done as far as cutting capacity, removing airplanes out of the market, and some of our airline mergers and some of our destinations going away. On a national perspective, I'd like to talk a little bit about what the airports in this country are important for and why, and then boil it down to what we're going to do here in Asheville. If we can, there we go. I'm going to start with a little video first, about 3-minute video. Thank you. I've showed this because a little later in my presentation I'll be talking about the importance, but basically airports are vital to the economy, not just locally but nationally. We need to get the message across to our delegates in Washington how important airports are and the need for infrastructure at these airports. And by getting communities involved, I've started showing this around the community. I've been to some of the Rotary clubs and what have you, showing this. Just getting the community involved to put pressure on Washington at the proper points in time, which will be coming up in a couple years, that we need to invest in infrastructure for our community. Some of the highlights that I just went through, again, 10,500 global destinations, takes you 28 years to get to. 730 million passengers a year travel through airports, and 65 trillion tons of cargo each year through an airport. 1.3 million people work at airports. I love this. It's the number 2 employer in this country after Walmart. $365 billion in payroll created by airports throughout the country, and 8% of the GDP, or $1.2 trillion. North Carolina, drilling down a little bit to North Carolina, the airports in this state contribute $25.8 billion to the economic output. 6% of North Carolina's GDP, and it creates 108,000 jobs. Drilling down a little more, we look at Western North Carolina and Asheville. Asheville contributes $474 million of economic output. I like to say almost $500 million. It sounds a little better. $11 million in corporate and property taxes, and 1,700 jobs, direct, indirect, and induced, come out of the airport. That's huge for Western North Carolina. Every 50-seat round-trip flight at a 70% load factor generates $43,000 of local economic impact, including tax revenue. So with 24 flights a day, times the math by 43,000, that's what we're generating in the community every day. Now we'll look at our growth and what we've done for the year in 2012. We've added jet bridges to the majority of our gates at the airport, allowing passengers to travel from the gate areas to the airplanes inside enclosed areas without being affected by inclement weather. We're starting on our new public safety facility. It's a $4.6 million project, roughly 16,000 square feet. It'll be the state-of-the-art firehouse for the airport. We also purchased a new firefighter vehicle this past year, roughly $350,000. Some of our development for this year, we're still working on the West Side Fill project on the west side of the airport. The picture on the upper right-hand side, I can't use a pointer, but if you notice the grass strip just to the bottom of the runway, if you look at the bottom left-hand picture, that's what the property looks like now with the fill project going on. That little green triangular strip of grass is now out there, a little harder to see, but it's all that dirt, and what you see there is almost level to the runway, bringing all that ground that was between the airport and Old Fanning Bridge Road up to runway elevation. It's approximately 3 million cubic yards of fill. We're almost finished with the project. We're starting on the northwest end now in preparation for our airfield project, which I'll touch on momentarily. We also are working on our master plan. It's a 20-year master plan, gives an outlook of what the airport expects to see within the next 20 years. The last time the airport did one was in 2001, and it was completed shortly before 9/11. Right after 9/11, the master plan that we had spent money on and time in doing was worthless. The FAA did not allow us to do another full-scale master plan right after that, so we've been waiting, and we have been working on it for the last 15 or 16 months. We've got stakeholders from Buncombe County involved, from the city of Asheville, Henderson County, City of Mills River, and City of Fletcher, all working together to get this master plan done. By the time it's done and approved, it's going to be a book that looks like this, and it shows what our outlook for the next 20 years will be. It breaks it down into short term, which is the next 5 years, mid-term, which is 5 to 10 years, and then long term, which is 10 years and beyond. We'll also, in addition to printing this big master book, we'll be getting some executive summaries, which we'll be delivering to all of you when they are printed and finished. The process, again, takes about 15 to 18 months. It starts with some pre-planning, some public hearings. We held 2 public hearings. One was on October 16th. It was held at the Skyland Fire Department. We had 11 people show up. We had 1 comment submitted at the meeting there, but no written comment submitted later. The 1 comment that we did receive had to do with the interchange construction project at Airport Road and I-26. We politely told them that it was not our project, that was a DOT project, but they still had questions and concerns about the Airport Road corridor. Our second meeting was held this past February. It was held at the airport. We had 15 people attend that meeting, and no comments were submitted. So the input that we got from all the municipalities was moving in the direction that the general public was aware of and accepted. One of the items in the master plan that we look at is our growth. We look at where we are today, a little bit of history, and then moving forward for the next 20 years. For employment on the left-hand column, again, this is a little small. We'll get you some copies of this information. We're looking at, over the next 20 years, 1.67% growth in our passenger traffic. Relatively flat, but that's what we see in the national economy as far as employments go in traffic. For air service, we're looking at about a 0.5% increase over the next 20 years. That's definitely flat. Part of that reason is the airlines are retiring the smaller 50-seat jets, putting in larger jets. With the entry of the larger jets, we're losing number of flights, and that's happening not just here, but it's all across the country. General aviation is expected to grow about 1.5% over the next 20 years, and cargo is expected to go about almost 3%. We've used several methods. The consultants did several methods to look at this and how they come up with it. They look at the trend lines, growth rates, market shares, and socioeconomic issues. And they have decided on our circumstance that the growth rate was the best method to come up with the way to predict what the next 20 years will look at. And they took the median rate, which is how we came up with these numbers. Out of the master plan, we get a couple things. One, we get a recommended development plan. There is a copy in your folders, so it makes it a little easier to look at. And we also come out with what's called the airport layout plan. It's the official document that goes to the FAA for approval. This is the only part of the master plan that we do that the FAA approves. And this shows what the layout of the airport looks like, the development on the airport moving forward over the next 20 years. Some of the things that are on this development plan that I'll point out right now are some added gates at the airport by increasing ramp acreage by 3 gate areas. If you look on the left-hand side of the drawing, you see an extension of about 1,300 feet proposed for the runway. It's not something that we're planning to do right now, but it is in the talk for the next 20 years. It may or may not happen. This came out of a discussion that we had with the state aviation division personnel. They recently asked us if we have capabilities of flying nonstop cargo planes from Asheville to the West Coast. And right now, with our 8,000-foot runway, it makes it very tough. By adding the additional 1,300 feet, we can get that type of cargo out of Asheville, and it will help attract manufacturers, whatever that may decide to sell to this region. Some of the other areas that this diagram talks about is the commercial non-aviation development. Some of that's on the bottom to the left of the screen. And some areas around airport road area. So again, you've got a better drawing of in your handout of what's what, but that's again what comes out of the master plan process. Our next page is our approval by the FAA for our airfield redevelopment program. Again, this is a little small. You do not have this, but you can refer back to the other drawing. Basically, we're spending $64 million to redevelop our airfield on the airport. The pavement right now for the runway is ending its useful life. We have a few more years left, but we have to recondition that. Our electrical systems on the runway are about shot. We have to refix those. And we currently do not meet certain standards that the FAA sets for separation between our runway and our taxiway. So what we plan to do is build a parallel taxiway to the west side of the airport, use that as a temporary runway, and reconstruct our runway 75 feet to the west. What that entails is building a whole brand new runway and tearing up the old one. You can't just, people say, well, can't you just add 75 feet of pavement on one end and take 75 feet off the other side? Can't do that because of the way of runways are paved and made. So by the time we're done, it's a 4-year project. We're getting $48 million from the federal government through our airport grants. We're getting state grants, and the rest will come from airport fund balances. It's anticipated to be a 4-year construction project, and by the time it's done, again, a lot of local companies will be bidding, working on it, so it's going to put a lot of people to work with a $64 million capital project. It'll be the single largest airport project that the airport has done since the airport was built back in the 50s.
Oh.
Air service. In 2012, we offered a new destination to Fort Lauderdale, started in November on Allegiant. That service has been going so well that we're adding St. Pete, Tampa in June next month. We're also working with our small community air service development grant that we received from the Department of Transportation. The county's been very gracious in also providing $150,000 towards that grant to get new air service for nonstop service to Denver. It's matching funds, so we have to have community and other airport funds involved to get that grant. So we're still negotiating with 2 airlines. The earliest, if we see nonstop Denver service, will be spring of 2014. Still slight chance, not very hopeful, but there is still some light at the end of the tunnel. And we also saw Delta this year bring in mainline aircraft, eliminating some of the 50-seat aircraft. We created the new Independent Airport Authority by state statutes. It went into effect June 28, 2012. It allows for a more efficient and economical operation, provides for a more regional representation by bringing Henderson County on the board, and we're in final transition with that now. The city is in the process to appointing their last appointee that goes on the airport board. We're working with the FAA and the city to resolve some of the land issues with the agricultural center, and hopefully we'll have that done before the end of the federal fiscal year and be able to move forward with the FAA. Some more highlights. Crisis training. We have trained and taught all of our employees incident command situations training. It's part of FEMA regulations, but we want our staff to be able to handle emergency crises that may develop at the airport. In 2012, we implemented a full-blown employee wellness program. It's been instrumental to keeping our health insurance rates down. We have seen a dramatic decrease in our health claims this year. Employees are involved. They have to do certain things each month to be able to qualify for discounts on their health insurance, but it's one way to keep our employees healthy and the organization with a better bottom line with health insurance. And then for other community involvements, we had our 5K run again last October. It drew 800 runners. The aviation day that was part with it, we had all kinds of military aircraft on display. It drew about 3,000 attendees. This year's 5K, we are going to do it again. It's set for September 21st, 2013, so put it on your calendar. The aviation day was shaping up to be maybe a little different because of sequestration of the federal government. The military is a little less reluctant to provide static displays for aircraft. So we'll see what happens with the rest of the day. Stay tuned. Some of our stats for 2012 was 356,000 employments, $78 million of net assets. That includes almost $16 million of cash fund balance we have on hand. We have 56 employees at the Airport Authority. Sources of revenue, our 3 largest sources are parking at 30%, airlines at 24%, and our rental cars at 23%. What's next? Some of the national trends that will be affecting the airport at Asheville, airline trends. We are down to 4 legacy carriers right now, American, U.S. Airways, United, and Delta. 2 of those, American and U.S. Airways, are about to merge, down to 3. Then you still have some regional and national carriers like Southwest and AirTran that are still up, but they've merged. So we have acquisitions bringing down the number of airlines. Airlines are retiring smaller aircraft. They're reducing capacity at airport all across the country to make themselves profitable. So we'll see what happens with the airline side. Washington, that's a whole different story in itself, but it is an uphill battle. That's, again, one reason why I showed the video and trying to get communities involved. Funding for airports on capital side of projects are funded through the Airport Improvement Program through 2015. That's only another 2 years away. We don't know where funding is going to come from after that. So it's important for communities to get on the bandwagon and stress that we need capital dollars to be able to do projects. Of course, we are dealing with sequestration, tower closures. Right now that's been put on hold, and they are taking capital dollars to fund employees so they don't have any furloughs. They're going down a slippery slope because those dollars really are needed for capital improvements, not for funding operational side of the house. And then just overall, and TSA, we are fortunate at the airport here. We had 10 vacant positions with TSA. That has not affected our service levels with TSA. So those positions just are not being filled, but it's not affecting the throughput of their screening process. And our controllers, again, they were shortly on strike. The furloughs are over, so we didn't have too much impact there. The economy, it's improving. We're hoping to see our passengers start coming back, and we'll see where that goes. And last, for some food for thought, a mile of pavement can take you down the road. A mile of runway can take you anywhere in the world or bring the world to Western North Carolina. I'll be happy to entertain any questions that you all may have. Also in your packet, briefly, there is a economic impact brochure of what the airport does and our 2012 annual report that just shows the highlights of what we've accomplished in the last year. Thank you. Any questions?
Now, just a point of information in your video where it's talking about shipping lobsters.
Yes.
If you are the recipient of a lobster or you're shipping a lobster overnight, make sure that those people are not out of town or that you are not out of town.
I guess they didn't survive?
Yeah, they didn't survive. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have one question,
Yes,
David.
sir.
Hey, Lew. Thanks for being with us. Just one question on the airport, the new runway expansion project. So has the $48 million of the federal funding part of that? Have the feds committed that those funds will be there? I know that when I was last on the board, we were talking about it, the plan, and we're talking about the schedule for when different approvals would come in. So is that kind of still a planning thing, or are they fully formally committed?
They are fully formally committed as much as Washington, D.C. can get fully committed. We have a plan for the next 4 years for funding for the $48 million. 40 of it is discretionary. $8 million is our entitlement money that we get each year. Funding right now only goes through 2015. The funding plan that the FAA has laid out goes out to 2016 and 2017. There's 2 years hanging out there. We have never seen the FAA not finish funding a project once a project starts. We know by talking to Congressman Meadows' office and Senator Burr Hagan's office, money is committed on paper with the FAA for our runway project for completion. Now again, if Congress doesn't appropriate money or they have budget issues, that could raise some issues with us. But it is committed as much as the FAA and the federal government will commit.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Real quickly, in the past we've talked about commercial development, industrial development on the west side of the airport. Can you bring us up to date a little bit about what's going on there and what we might see in the future? I know we've got Sierra Nevada on the west side, and hopefully we'll have some other industry, but just if you can give us an update.
We are working cooperatively with the Henderson County Partnership for Economic Development and the Buncombe County Economic Development Coalition to try and build up development on the west side. We plan on building some cargo operations on the west side off of Old Fielding Bridge Road just as you enter, just prior to entering Ferncliff Industrial Park where Sierra Nevada is. On the northwest side, if you look at that drawing that I provided, there's some areas for non-aviation development. We're hoping to somehow tie in a roadway with Ferncliff and Sierra Nevada to be able to do non-aviation development such as warehousing and other type of storage facilities. Aviation revenues are becoming limited by nature of how the airlines operate. So we are looking for means of improving our non-aviation development. We are working with a developer right now to put in a gas station that's been approved on Airport Road and the airport exit right there across from the agricultural center. We've had some interest for some hotels along that strip also. So if we can look at building up the non-aeronautical properties, we're hoping to sustain our revenues that way. West side, again, there's a lot of flurry of activity with Sierra Nevada going in. Ferncliff Industrial Park has contacted us on several projects. We'll see where they go, and hopefully it will add to economic development, jobs, and everything on the west side of the airport.
Thank you.
How much land does that encompass?
The two areas on the west side of the airport, probably 60 to 80 acres total.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
How is your 30% of your income comes from parking?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
How is your parking space availability and expansion? I mean,
part of the master plan, one of the major items in our master plan that we looked at was parking. 2 years ago, when we peaked with our passenger employments, twice during the summer, one day I had 73 spaces left in the whole parking lot. Another day I had 32 spaces. It became a extreme concern for us. With the flat and the drop in 2012, that pressure has backed off a little bit, so we do have some time, especially with what the master plan is calling for in the future for our passenger loads. We have identified 3 areas on the airport property for a parking garage, hoping within the next 5 years we'll start construction of that to beat the demand for our parking. Our parking loads, since our passenger counts have gone down, obviously have gone down a little bit. We implemented a parking rate increase back in January of 2012, a little over a year ago now. And the increase that we implemented has made up for the loss of number of cars that we've had. So we're pretty much status quo right now. So on a budgetary standpoint, we are right at making our budget numbers. And we're hoping, again, with our numbers starting to look like they're increasing, with the Fort Lauderdale service that started in November, with the Tampa service that's starting in June, we're hoping those will start increasing and putting us back where we don't have to worry about it.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? I just want to thank Lew for being active he's been president of the regional, and I think you're now on the board of the National Association of
Yes.
Airports, and that's a real honor for Asheville, and we appreciate your service. I know it's a lot of traveling. Of course, you know how to get on the plane, but
I do.
Yeah.
Asheville is thought very highly within the rest of the country, not just from an aviation standpoint, from a community standpoint. So they definitely do appreciate having the service on the board, and I appreciate being able to represent Asheville nationally.
we appreciate you, Lew. Thank you so much. Good report. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Patty Torno about the Riverfront redevelopment report. And Patty, it's good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
All of us to agree to get you on the agenda, so everybody wanted to hear from you. So thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Gant, Chair Gant, and all the county commissioners for giving me this opportunity to speak. I guess I'm going to need my glasses, aren't I? I'd also like to thank Commissioner Jones for the invitation at last meeting, and a special thanks to the Commission for lending us David King as one of our commissioners, and thanks to David specifically for serving with us. He's a pleasure to work with. Yeah, we're going. Oh, yay, it's working. Good. The Asheville Area Riverfront Redevelopment Commission is comprised of 14 members. We are appointed by 7 of our partner organizations. You can see our current roster as I flip through these slides. The thing to remember is that Asheville is a small town. And the beauty of a small town is that we all know each other. You probably know somebody on these lists. Whoops, it worked once. Now it's not working. Okay, sorry. And the AARC leverages all of these natural networks to foster new connections, to play matchmaker and cheerleader, to help our regional riverfronts live up to their economic development potential. We do this in a lot of different ways. A lot of what we do is networking, either internally with property owners and with others, state, local, federal organizations. I'll probably be going to Atlanta in the next couple of weeks and having lunch with Myra from the Federal Transportation Administration. We just do sort of, I think, what's called soft networking. You know, it's not a big deal, but it's what we keep doing. This is a little hard. the AARC at this point has a number of places you can find us on the internet. Our official website is with the City of Asheville at asheville.nc.gov, and you can click on Boards and Commissions and you'll find us there. It's where you'll find our official minutes, and any sort of official business that we do is there. The other piece, though, is I, as the chair, keep what I sort of talk about as our cheerleader blog, and that's the avlriverfront.com. So for anybody watching, that's a great resource to just keep up with projects that the county or that the city or that private individuals are doing on our riverfront. If you were to click on there right now, you'd see the RAD tip, you'd see New Belgium, you'd see the Riverside Drive strategic plan, things that I'll talk about later today. The other piece that we've realized, though, is that there is a little bit of a gap in how the development community accesses information about the riverfront. And that's something that we will be working with in 2013 with the Economic Development Coalition about having, for instance, things as simple as we would like to have the databases that they use searchable by the language riverfront. So if somebody is specifically looking for a riverfront property, they will be able to access that information. So we're working with Clark Duncan and his crew to see if we can get that to happen. You have a copy of our 2012 annual report in front of you. For anybody at home that would also like to see this, you can go to the avlriverfront.com and click on Minutes Plus, and you'll see you can follow through if you'd like. Oops, hello, are we here? Yeah. As you can tell, 2012, the biggest thing to happen on the riverfront is New Belgium, and we get Commissioner Gant on the Buncombe, I believe the Buncombe County Fat Tire bike, if I'm not mistaken. But to have to understand the true story of the New Belgium project, we need to back up a little bit. This is a picture taken by Mary Jo Brezhny in 1976 of the property that New Belgium has since purchased and is in the process of demolishing. But in 2010, when the AARC first started, I happened to run into a friend of mine who is a kayak designer for a national company called Liquid Logic, and their parent company is Legacy Paddle Sports, which has since relocated to Fletcher. But in 2010, Shane said, we really are interested in being on Asheville's riverfront. And so I said, well, would you let us use you guys as a test case and see what we can do, and let your process teach us what partners we need to bring together, who we need to get involved. And they said yes. So this photograph was actually taken on the tour that I took them on of the Stockyard property. And this was just us looking down on the bulls from this kind of catwalk that was up, since gone at this point. But and what we learned from that process was that there were some hindrances on that property. And so we got the property into the Land of Sky Regional Brownfields Initiative program and got the assessments done and got some title work on this funny little strip of property that separated the three different properties that were owned by all three owners. It was just really cumbersome. And so that legwork, in cooperation with working with the EDC to get the EDC to understand what a great piece of property this was, ultimately helped in getting New Belgium to locate on our riverfront. You can see a bunch of other partners that were involved in that process. In some way, shape, or form, the AARC had to do with connections with all of those entities. One of the property owners is our current vice chair, Joe Freakus. And in the road realignment that is part of the New Belgium process, while it's a City of Asheville roadway realignment, it involved some property that was owned by Buncombe County at the time and that had FEMA deed restrictions on it. And so one of our other commissioners, Mayor Vihan, has a really good working relationship with FEMA, and so he helped make he understood what needed to happen and got help from Steph Monson, our staff liaison, to make FEMA say yes to this project, which was really important to get the New Belgium to be able to happen. Oops. Okay, so why are we looking at equipment for Old Wood Company? It turns out that about a week prior to to the beginning of the demolition of the Ice House property, which we refer to as 91 Riverside Drive. If you look a little to the left of that photograph, you'll see a little 99. That actually is Old Wood Company. And they took delivery on about $100,000 worth of new gear the week before this building came down. Darren Green, who owns that property, has been advocating for that nuisance to get out of his backyard. And we were very successful in pulling together members of the River Arts District Business Association, members of the River Arts District Artists, members of the surrounding neighborhoods to come to the city and say, something has to be done. And the city did a really good job of stepping up to the plate and buying that property and doing the demolition. And that will bring us, sorry, I have to make a big enough motion so that Judy can see me, I think. And one of the interesting things that has happened is that after that demolition, you can see the big building in the back of that slide, which is 9597 Robert Street. And that building now all of a sudden is getting a lot of looks. It's been on the market for a while and nobody's been able to make that project happen, but it's my understanding that there is actually a really good developer very seriously interested in that property, and I will be thrilled if that one comes through. It's probably the last big piece of property in the River Arts District of a building that's currently standing that really is in serious need of renovation. One of the other pieces that we did in 2012 was what we call the 1430 Riverside Drive. This photograph is actually from 2007, which is a couple of years after Progress Energy finished about a $2 million remediation of that parcel, of the 30 Riverside Drive parcel, which was back in the 20s and 30s, a lamp gas plant. So it was mandated by the state that they do that remediation. They took out 20,000 tons of dirt. It was 6 months of seven dump trucks 3 times a day moving dirt out of that property. It was pretty amazing. So in 2011, the city started, their Parks and Rec started doing some maintenance, but it wasn't until 2012, oops, sorry, back up one. Yeah, thank you. In 2012, at one of our Riverfront Redevelopment Commission meetings, I happened to just say out loud, wouldn't it be nice if the property across the street from me looked more like a park than a concentration camp? And so it was one of those things where I said, couldn't we please just take that fence down? And Mayor Vihan just happened to say, well, you know, we're building a new auto impound yard and we could really use a fence. And so the Public Works Department from the town of Woodfin came and took the fence out. So it's just these little, like if I had not been in the room with Mayor Vihan, that might not have happened. And then Asheville Greenworks has a really good graffiti removal program that they worked with the city of Asheville to clean that property. And then in June of 2012, SCANA PSNC donated that property to the city of Asheville. Okay, it's 2013, so what's on our work plan for 2013? The first thing, one of the most prominent bits is the Riverside Drive strategic plan. And part of that came from, now that this building looks so nice, everybody and their brother is calling the city saying, I want that property. What are you going to do with that property? What, can I have it? I want to do a whatever. And so it became clear that with that property and the Ice House property being bought by the city and some other property that the city has owned, within that stretch of land from 12 Bones to the Old Smith Bridge, Craven Street Bridge, the city owns 10 plus acres in a fairly tight section of the densely used part of the what is currently the River Arts District. And so it became clear that we needed to do a redevelopment plan for the city-owned property. We were lucky enough to get some funding from the Federal Transportation Administration through the East of the Riverway grant, the Sustainable Communities grant that the city of Asheville received about 1.5 years ago. And they have hired the following consulting team, the people that you can see up there. Oops, sorry. Oops, one back. Yeah, thank you. Oops, one more forward. Did it work? Okay. And what we want out of it, I was part of the team to decide who the consultants were, and in talking with all the city staff that we worked with, Nikki Reed, who is the real estate manager for the city of Asheville, I looked at Nikki and I just said, what I want out of this plan, what I want out of this process is for us to know what portions of the city-owned property need to be reserved for park, what property needs to be reserved for the RAD tip, the Riverside Drive, River Arts District Transportation Improvement Project, and what parcels can put back into the private partnership to come back onto our tax rolls and to revitalize that area by their use. And she completely concurred. You will see that right now the process is slated to start on May 20th, which is Wilma Dykeman's birthday, which I think is lovely. And it will be a 24-week process, should wrap up by the end of November. There will be quite a number of public information sessions. And the first of them, I'll talk about in just a minute. There's an interesting sort of synergy that's going on down there. The Asheville Design Center has what they call their summer intern design build workshop every year. And they put out to the community asking for proposals. I partnered with the West End Clingman Avenue Neighborhood Association, and we put forth the notion of a pedestrian bridge that would connect the 1430 Riverside Drive property over to Gene Webb Park. Because as we have worked on the 14 Riverside Drive property, we started a mulch trail, but as I was building this trail, it's like, you know, you're still going to have to come back up to the road and walk on Riverside Drive to actually get over to Gene Webb Park. And that's an occurrence that you don't want people doing. Riverside Drive is very narrow there. It's literally just 24 feet wide. It's barely enough for the cars. There's really no room for pedestrians. So it just seemed like a good option, and it is the option that the Design Center has chosen. So there will be the first of a number of what they're the public events, and this first one will be on May 31st. It's what's called a Speak Up. They're calling it a Speak Up event, and it will be a partnership with the Asheville Design Center. It will be the consultants from the Riverside Drive Strategic Plan, 14 Riverside Drive. The building itself will be open to the public, so you can actually go inside that building. It's actually quite lovely, and it will be an opportunity for the community to give some feedback on what they'd like to see happen down in this part of our riverfront. There is also Luli Gonzalez with Open will be doing some information gathering around the smokestack was left standing from the ice house. That particular piece is something that the whole community voiced. They would really like to see it be able to stay and become an icon for the River Arts District as something that you can see from the highway. You know you've landed here, which is something that has been a continual problem for our riverfront. People don't know how to get there. Oops, sorry. Okay. We're almost done. The River Arts District Transportation Improvement Project, we've moved on to phase 2. My slides are a little backwards here. My apologies for that. So 2013 will be phase 2. We have the scope of work you see here. Sorry, I'm going to switch to the next one. The funding for the RAD tip is the biggest issue. Phase 1 has actually been completed. All of the funding for that has come and been spent, and we have ended up with a signed NEPA document, which is it's a federal environmental document that you must have in order to qualify for federal funding. So that the current alignment is viable as far as the federal government is concerned. We've passed all of what they call the state historic preservation issues and all the environmental issues. So we're good to go. There is a 6-year time limit on that particular on the NEPA document. So we need to get our funding together in the next 6 years. Hello. Oh, I did it too much. Sorry. Back one. So phase 2 is this year. It's the same consulting team that did phase 1, so it's been very efficient in that regard. We don't have to bring a new consulting team up to speed. Currently, we have $100,000 of what is estimated as $1.4 million is what we need to get from 30% construction drawings to 75% construction drawings. So there's definitely a big money gap in terms of getting to the construction drawings where basically we know where every driveway is going to go, and we know exactly where the right-of-way needs to be acquired and all that good stuff. So this is something that anybody that sits on any transportation boards or stuff, we are asking for help wherever we can to get some funding to get this to keep going forward. We do really feel strongly that this 2.2 mile roadway that starts, it's basically Riverside Drive and Lyman from Hill Street down to Amboy Road, that it's through the heart of the River Arts District. It's what you're going to see when you come to New Belgium. And so having a roadway that is state of the art is what we are looking for there. It's a multimodal transportation route. It will have roadway, it will have street trees, it will have parking, it will have multimodal, it will have bike lanes, and there will probably be I believe there's a separate greenway that comes on the riverbank, not necessarily but it would be designed and built as part of this roadway. So it will be a parkway for our riverfront and really will help redevelopment through that whole area. I think and then there's the big funding. So altogether, this project should be around $25 million. That does not include if Craven Street Bridge needs to be rebuilt, which there is some discussion about that. If the truck route for New Belgium chooses to go up north on Riverside Drive, making the turning radiuses off of that particular bridge are problematic. And the phase 2 is going to look at that. City Council has basically instructed to say, let's spend the money that we currently have on figuring that one out first. But there are pedestrian connection issues that our current river crossings do not address, i.e. the Craven Street Bridge has maybe a 3-foot sidewalk. The Amboy Road Bridge has about an 18-inch sidewalk. Nobody in their right mind would put their children on that bridge. And so at some point you have to have a pedestrian connection to the rest of the greenway in order for that to make sense. So that's a big one that is very long-term for us that we definitely need some help with. Oops. Hello. These are just a list of some new businesses that are coming online in 2013, 2014. 11 Thompson Street is a bunch of apartments. The Glenrock Hotel is some 22 units of workforce housing. I believe Commissioner Jones did a hard hat tour of that today? Was it today? It's a really interesting project. And the last one, 233 Riverside Drive, it's very difficult to see here. Again, you can see some better pictures on the website. This is the last piece of property before you get to the railroad trestle on the east bank of the French Broad River, and the number is 233 Riverside Drive. What the man who owns it, Matt Logan, who owns 5 Walnut, he is proposing a shipping container restaurant. So stacking a bunch of shipping containers on the high ground that they have there, and they will have a restaurant. They have a plan that's been approved by the city. They expect to be operational in the next year or so. And supposedly the containers are going to show up anytime. So I thought you'd want to know about it a little ahead of time. As I will always say, our meetings are the second Thursday of the month, every month at 4 p.m. at the Chamber at 36 Montfort Avenue. As soon as I said that, I was like, except June this year, because we will go do our retreat, so we will not have a June meeting. But in general, we have a meeting the second Thursday of every month. So we would be happy to have you join us if you ever felt so inclined. And if you ever have any questions or want to talk to me directly, I'm happy to have coffee, lunch, whatever. I will be of any service that I can be for y'all. Also, our staff liaison, Our staff liaison is Steph Monson. She works through the Economic Development Office in the City of Asheville, and that's her contact information. Again, if you hear of any projects that are interested, just send them our way or send them to Clark at the EDC. So I'm happy to take any questions that anybody has, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Patty. Any questions or comments from the board?
Very informative.
Thank you.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you. We really have a great commission, and thank you again for giving us Ricky Silver again. He's been a great chair for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Announcements. The board will hold a special meeting May 14 at 4:30 for public hearings on an economic development incentive. The next regular meeting of the commission will be May 28th, not May 21st, beginning at 4:30 p.m. in the commission chambers, 200 College Street, room 326 in downtown Asheville. Commission meetings can be seen on BC Charter Cable Channel 2, ATT Uverse Channel 99, live on buncombecounty.org during the meetings, or online anytime at buncombecounty.org. We haven't changed our no need for a closed session. Is that right? Still early. All right, good. Any other business before the board? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Jones, second by Commissioner King. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.